We're not in a depression. We have an unemployment rate of less than 5%. Yet in this county, we still have 57,000 people who are homeless, living in the shadow of prosperity. And in fact, these 57,000 people are 10% of the homeless in the entire nation, right here in this county.
The American activist Marian Wright Edelman said that the challenge of social justice is to evoke a sense of community, that we need to make our nation a better place just as we make it a safer place. And this is a good morning, given that the community of thought and action leaders that are gathered in this room are here to support this very important work.
Good morning, or good afternoon, I'm not quite sure what it is yet, I'm a little confused. I'm here to talk about the work that the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Society has been doing. This is a joint venture between the USC Suzanne Dvorak Peck School of Social Work and the Viterbi School of Engineering. And some people think that this is a bit of a crazy combination, but it turns out that social workers and engineers really care about solving real-world problems, and that wicked problems like homelessness are not going to be solved easily by one discipline. And so we are trying very hard to think outside of the box. And what's fun for me this morning is that the project that initially brought Milind and myself together is the work that I'm going to present to you today, which is looking at work with homeless youth. So I am really happy to be here to talk about homeless youth, in part because they are the invisible, in some ways most marginalized of the homeless individuals who are on our streets in LA. There are actually about 6,000 of the 57,000 homeless individuals who we see in the streets every night who are these unaccompanied homeless youth between 13 and 24. And they're a fairly voiceless group. And so I want to mention two things about these young people. One is that they are often on the streets because of things like family abuse, and they are not on the streets because they want to be. The other thing that I want to mention about these young people is that part of how they survive on a day in and day out basis is because they take care of one another in pretty amazing ways. And their social networks are something which I, as a social work scientist, and Milind, as a computer scientist, were very interested in leveraging for the good. So today, some folks have talked about the importance of people with lived experience being a part of the process and a part of the mission. This research project is actually all about that. What it is that we are trying to find homeless young people who can become our advocates for health, in particular HIV prevention, so that they can go out into their communities and work on improving the health and well-being of their peers. So, as Saul Alinsky said, this is the world as it is. This is where you start. So we've got to start somewhere. So we decided to start with HIV prevention because, as you can see on the slide, 7% of the youth on the streets have HIV. It's a huge problem. Now, sometimes people ask me, when I talk about AI, they're sort of like, what does AI have to do with homelessness? Because they're thinking about guys like this, right? The Terminator. We're not talking about that at CASE. We don't really care about killer robots that are going to take over the world. We're not even that interested, although we dabble in it a little bit, with sort of the machine learning type stuff that you would see driving something like Google search. What we're really interested in is autonomous multi-agent systems, the sorts of AI algorithms that drive things like Uber and Google Maps. So think about this as your example for a minute. You're trying to get from LAX to USC. We all know that this is a total nightmare. You pull up your app because it's going to give you a few different options. We love this app because it's learned all this information about the uncertainty about what's going on. And so instead what we're going to do is, apparently I've got 2 minutes left. Wow, we just got started. Milind, we're going to have to talk fast. Okay, so we've got a homeless youth network. It's a big traffic mess. So we need to figure out which are the young people who we particularly want to invest in so that they can do this advocacy work for them. And Milind's going to explain the AI piece of it quickly. Wow. Sorry.
So where's the 2-minute marker? Okay. Well, so let me talk more broadly. My name is Milind Tambe. I'm the other co-director of the Center for AI in Society. I've been conducting research in AI for 30 years. And the main point of our research in AI is that it's not in the lab. We really want to do AI in society. What this means is that it's very important for us to immerse ourselves in the domain to build the right kinds of models. It's important to know what exactly the problems are. Then, of course, we want to engage in AI research. We actually want to advance AI, develop new algorithms. But then we want to deploy it in the field to understand the impact and not just write papers about it, and understand what has gone right or wrong, and then based on that, improve our AI algorithms. And to the particular instance of the problem that we are focused on here, we've got many different projects going on at CASE for AI in society and working on public health and low-resource communities. But here, the particular challenge that Eric pointed out to us is the fact that there's a very large-scale graph where it is a network of homeless youth, and we are trying to figure out the right kinds of peer leaders to spread influence amongst these youth. And solving these problems is a very difficult challenge. There's been work in marketing and so forth, but when we come in the context of homeless youth, there's significant amounts of uncertainty, and therefore new algorithms become important to create. So we've drawn insights from these algorithms, from our interactions with Eric, to recognize that there really are partitions in this network. So the key insight here is that it's not just some completely random network, but there are communities within the network. There are groups of youth who may hang out on a beach together or may be playing basketball together. And so we can harness these partitions within the network in order to develop, do graph partitioning and therefore solve smaller scale problems, which exploit these partitions, solve smaller scale problems, and then combine the answers together. And that's been one of the key ideas in developing newer algorithms. And in this way, this partnership allowed us to get insights from our interactions with our colleagues from social work, from our interactions with the domain to understand that we can develop newer algorithms. There have been further new developments in algorithms that have been continuing. The photographs you see on the top left-hand corner, these are our PhD students who have been conducting this work. And so by developing these new algorithms, we've been able to advance AI research. But of course, as I said, it's not just advancing AI research. We actually want to test things in the field. And I'm going to hand this over to Eric now so that he can explain how these algorithms were tested in the field.
Which means I have to talk really fast. So these are my community partners, Safe Place for Youth and my friend's place. They've been community partners of mine for years. Let's see, advance. Okay, we did 3 basic pilot tests. We tested 2 versions of this algorithm. We tested the standard public health way of doing things. And what we found out was that we had these great results. So here's these graphs showing we had more influence spread in these networks, more young people started getting new HIV tests. But that's actually not even the best part about this. The best part about this are the young men like this. So these are 2 young men who were actually the peer leaders that the algorithm selected, who did this great work of spreading HIV prevention information and testing increases to their communities. Both of these young men today are stably housed. They have jobs. They're doing really well. In fact, I just checked in with my community partner friends from Safe Place for Youth to ask them about one of them in particular. And so moving forward, we want to continue to do this work that helps to not only solve particular pieces of the problem, but has the ability to empower people. And so we've got a large-scale trial of this HIV prevention study that's going to go underway. We also then have 2 other things that are worth mentioning, which is that there is I'm working with a couple of communities, one who are interested in using this influence spread idea around social service provision. So if one of the things that you're thinking about is, well, HIV prevention isn't really something that I'm that excited about, but I am excited about helping to link folks to social services, this is a model for that as well. And then the last thing is that we're moving forward to do some interesting new AI work that's going to be in conjunction with LA Housing Service Authority to really think about improving the ways that coordinated entry can match folks to housing interventions. And so we're really invested as a center in a lot of social problems, but particularly homelessness, and we're excited to help you fight the fight. So as Michael Quick said, fight on should be a call to service.
Hi everyone, my name is Karthik Murali. I'm the director of USC's Digital Health Lab. And so what I'd like to do today is share some background about D-Health and talk about some ideas in which where technology can play a supporting role in the homelessness efforts. So we are an innovation lab, and we build technology for public health and medicine. Now, things like building technology to support doctors in developing countries, monitor patient vitals easily and cheaply in the ICU, or technologies which help connect people exiting institutions like jails with supportive services so they have access to information whenever they want through simple texting. Now, our mission is to eliminate the technical challenges that block innovative solutions from scaling. And we do this by first partnering with organizations to get a deep understanding of the problem. Two, creating practical solutions with the latest technology that's available to us. And three, I think most importantly, to keep working with our partners to make sure that these solutions are implemented. Now, we started our homeless program a few years ago when USC President Max Nikias led a call to action throughout the campus. And we started talking to organizations like CSH and LASA and public health agencies to see where data and technology can play a supporting role. Now, as Eric mentioned, sometimes technology in the context of homelessness may sound a little bit unusual, but when you take a deeper look, data underpins a lot of the supportive services that happens. People, use information systems to write down information about encounters with the patients and clients. Program administrators amalgamate that to create new programs, analyze, measure progress, create new interventions, and so on. So looking at it from a data perspective, one of the things that has been talked about today is the shift towards more integrated care models where different stakeholders sort of coordinate the efforts together in the field. But what's going on is that there's a problem where information isn't really shared that easily. And what's happening is that this is either slowing down or pretty much blocking a lot of this coordinated efforts that's going on. And sometimes even if that information is shared, it's just not very user-friendly to use and manage. And so that's what we set out to do. We started to tackle this problem of data sharing, which in the technology world is about as exciting as plumbing. But we believe that this will have an important benefit to the community. And so we have started in the last 2 years partnering with cities and counties, think tanks, and technology companies to explore not only a way to fix this fundamental data challenge, but to also show what happens when you do let information flow freely. And so with the City of LA, we're working with the Office of Economic Opportunity to really understand the health of a city and look at or visualize the social determinants of homelessness, and to combine private and public sources of information to come up with more nuanced understandings. With the City of Long Beach, we've been working with them to help them streamline their services, and so they have an accurate understanding of how or what city services are being utilized, and they can monitor changes as they deploy or make new interventions. With the City of Santa Monica, we've been working with Joseph to really help coordinate sort of first responders and case managers and their outreach work in the field so that information can be shared freely at the site. And so I'd like Joseph to talk a bit more about the work in Santa Monica.
Good morning. My name is Joseph Cevitello. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the City of Santa Monica. I'm very happy to be here. And I want to start with a story. So I started in the city about 16 months ago. And shortly before beginning, my boss, the city manager, Rick Cole, said, "I want to have lunch with you." And he said, "I want to talk to you about a problem I have." The problem, as he described it, is the city of Santa Monica does a lot for homelessness, but the question is, were we doing all that we could? And the challenge was the following. He said, on any given day, there might be a homeless person who might be in a park in the morning, and somebody might call 911, and fire would roll out and check in on that person. And then they'd leave. And that person might stay there, or they might move on, and maybe they might get in an altercation with another homeless person. And then the police department would be called. And they would respond, and then they would move on. And maybe this person would get on the big blue bus and go to another park. And maybe somebody would call again, and fire would respond. And so he said, on any given day, one person might be generating 5 or 6 interactions with the city. And yet, we don't know that because all of that information is siloed. And try as we might, there's not always the best coordination between police, fire, and our homeless street teams. So he said, are we doing all that we can for that person? Are we giving them integrated care? Is there something that we could do in combining that information that would lead to better outcomes? And he said, and I think technology has a role to play in that, and that's why I want to hire you. So I really thought of this as, not exaggerating, an awesome challenge. I mean, normally as a CIO, you deal with things like data governance and data, not all that exciting. But to be able to think about how we could apply technology to help provide better care for the homeless, now that's a great challenge to have. So what I did is, being new, I walked around the city and knocked on doors. And one of the doors that I knocked on was the Milken Institute. And I spoke to Matt Horton and Rebecca Simon there and told them about our challenge. I brought along one of my colleagues from the Cultural and Community Services Department, Danielle Noble, and we described what we were thinking about doing with better outcomes and maybe with technology. And Matt said, I know just the people. And he introduced us to USCD Health, and we got to meet Karthik and Sanjeet Mahanti, as well as Jared Goodner and Prajant Samant from Aikido. And I'll tell you, these are really smart people who did some amazing things. So, if I can, oops, yeah. Supposed to have some slides there. Don't know what happened with them. Anyway, we can do without the slides. Basically, what we're doing here is we're trying to use the data that we already have, both PD, fire, and HMIS data, to integrate it into an app that will allow our first responders to have a better overall picture of what is going on the street. So essentially, this is a role-based application delivered on a smartphone device. We provide that to our police department, our fire department, and our homeless street team. And based upon what their role is, they see the data that would, oh, there we go. Now I got my slides, I think. Maybe not. Amazing, the CIO has a problem here. Bummer. I can only go back. Anyway, it's a great app. I wish I could show it to you. It's not done yet, but it's going to be done. And I have to say, it's been really fantastic partnering. Oh, there we go. Finally. Yeah, can you go to the next one? How about the next one? Yeah, so that's essentially what we're going to see. You're going to see role-based access into an app, combining very complex data. Police data normally has a lot of controls around it, as does fire data, which has a lot of controls around it, as does HMIS. And based upon your role, you'll get to see all this data. And so you'll know if somebody has been interacting with the police and the fire in any given day, and hopefully we'll come up with better outcomes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we have a few questions. Let's start with partnerships. For the panel, what additional partners would you like to see at the table that you think could most effectively help move technology and social justice into a more effective outcome?
I think from our side, from the Center for AI in Society, one of the big challenges is that we can develop AI technology, we can do prototypes, we can do proof of concepts, smaller scale experiments, but taking the technology to scale, really, if we are thinking about taking these AI algorithms and so forth out into different cities, statewide, nationwide, we would need partners that would allow us to somehow support this kind of technology development, transfer, and really support this outside. For things that are very commercially viable, we could imagine a spin-off in terms of startup companies, but here there may be more that is needed, some social entrepreneurship and so forth. So these are the kinds of partners that we would really like to see at the table in order for our research to move out into the real world in a much larger scale.
And I think from our perspective, since one of the challenges that we're tackling is the movement of information that goes freely, organizations that deal a lot with information, and they probably have a better idea of how they think they can leverage their information to get more insight out of it by sharing that information with another organization. So I think that's the type of partners that we're looking for, nonprofits, other cities and other counties that deal with these data challenges.
The other question that came from the audience is, obviously Elon Musk and others have been worried about AI. As you use AI and machine learning to track and understand youth, what are you doing to avoid unintended consequences?
I think, so this is a great question. So there's a couple of things. One is you have to be thoughtful about the ethics of this work, and you actually have to look for problems. So with the work that we're wanting to do with LASA, one of the things that we came to them and said was, hey, let's look to see whether or not African American and Latino youth are doing as well in our communities as white youth are. And so that's going to be part of our algorithmic design, is can we create systems that are more equitable? There's also sometimes AI does some really cool things that are unexpected and actually creates unintended good consequences. So one of the things that was really great about this algorithm that we built to pick the homeless youth to become our peer advocates is that it told us to pick some unusual suspects. And I don't have time to get into the really funny stories that I have about some of these unusual suspects, but trust me, it's young people that weren't on their surface folks who would be easy to work with, but the algorithm said these guys are really important to their community, so we went through the trouble and effort of really reaching out to these young people, and they are the young people who you can see thriving. And so go to the CASE website, case.usc.edu. You can see really cool videos of the young people themselves talking about their experience and kind of who they were.
And I just wanted to briefly add that this center was founded because we have been concerned about the largely negative news that's out there about AI in terms of ethical concerns, in terms of killer robots, in terms of jobs loss, and all the good that AI can do today in society is often not highlighted. And that's the purpose of our center. And we're very grateful to the deans, Dean Yarchos and Dean Flynn, that they've supported this mission for establishing this center, which is really focused on how AI can be used for social good in society today.
Excellent. Excellent way to answer and end. Please join me in congratulating and thanking our panel.